Hi everyone, Christina here. A couple days ago, I hopped on YouTube Live and created some paper piece cards with pattern paper. It was so fun. I actually finished making more cards. These were two that were not shown on that live stream, but I wanted to create even more cards using pattern paper. I have collected quite a few 6x6 pads over the last little bit, and I wanted to create more. And I was looking for some dies or anything that would make this paper piecing go a little bit faster and easier. And I came across this die from Waffle Flower. It's their color combos die set. And I thought these three square pieces with, well, you could actually use all of these in this set, but these three in particular that I'm pulling out today, I thought would look great with different pattern paper. And there's a lot of different ways you can piece these all together, almost like you're making a quilt, which is really kind of fun. So the two 6x6 pads I'm using today are from Craft Consortium. I have this wood grain texture one and then this light tones grunge one as well. I picked 4 different pieces of pattern paper from the wood textures. This is double-sided, so I'm actually going to get 8 different patterns. And then I chose 5 papers out of the other 6x6 pad. And I wanted a wide variety of colors. These are kind of more solid textures, but if you have a pattern paper pack that has patterns in it, I think this would look amazing. These are just the ones that I have been itching to use that have been in my stash. So I did a bunch of die cutting, and after a few times I kind of came across a method that made the die cutting so fast and easy, and that is by taping the 3 dies together and moving them as one as I do all of my die cutting. So as you can see, I can pick up all 3 dies, kind of use my fingers to punch out all those pieces, and then I can get a new piece of pattern paper and pick up all 3 dies at the same time and transfer them over to the new paper. And this held up great. The washi tape didn't lose any of its stick, and it kept those dies in place for all of my die cutting. Some of these patterns I actually die cut twice, but for the most part, this was really, really fast and easy. I would say maybe it took me 10-15 minutes to cut out all of those pieces of pattern paper. And then I went to town putting them all together in different patterns, using the square pieces all together, taking the rectangles, putting them together in fun patterns, using kind of random ways to make them all fit together. And then at this point, I knew I needed to start thinking about actually getting these pieces onto my cards. And I wanted to clear away this work surface so that I could just work on one card at a time. So I grabbed some Glad Press and Seal. This is kind of like a cling wrap, but different. If you've never used it before, it's a plastic that has a very gentle adhesive on one side. And I just placed it over the top of these groupings and press those papers onto it. And then I can lift everything up all at the same time and just move them to a different area of my craft desk. I'm going to be taking these pieces and adhering them directly onto paper so they all stay together. So I'm using some Stick It adhesive. This is a thin adhesive sheet, and you remove the release paper on one side, press it down onto your paper or cardstock, and then you can remove the other side of the paper, and it exposes that adhesive, and then you can press. You could either take that paper and put it on your project, or in my case today, I'm taking my die cuts and pressing them down onto the Stick It adhesive. So this makes it super fast and easy and make sure that all of my die cuts stay together as well. So I've sped up the video process so you can see me putting these all together. But basically, I wanted to make sure that each one of these pattern paper pieces was tight up against the one next to it. And for these that have the different sizes of rectangles, in order for the pattern to really work, I did have to have them directly touching each other. The same goes for the triangles. Since not all the triangles are the same size, they do have to be touching each other. I have another example in this video, or a few more examples, where the die cut pieces are not touching each other and they are popped up off the front of the card. And in those cases, you'll notice I'm using all the same size die cuts. And that makes it really easy to get a nice arrangement with some white space around each shape. For these triangle ones, I sort of just, adhered one and then moved out from there and tried to get them as tight as possible. And in the end, I had a couple pieces that didn't quite line up perfectly, but not a huge deal because after I had all of the die cuts adhere to this stick-it adhesive, I went around and cut off the excess, and that's to get rid of all the white paper around the edges and also any of that exposed stick-it adhesive. So in order to do that, I just used a craft knife and a ruler. So the ruler I'm using today is from Fawn. It's one of the really fun rulers that has, I think it's all the way down to a 16th of an inch measurement on it. So if you are ever struggling with how to find, a fourth, a quarter, and an eighth, a 16th, a 32nd, you can use a ruler like this. So I trimmed these down. So now I have these two paper pieced sections to go on my card fronts. And like I mentioned before, if you use the same size die cut, you can arrange all of these die cuts and have space in between them all, like a little bit of a border around them all. So for the wood grain papers, here's where I'm going to show you a really fun tip on how to use this with press and seal. And I have to give Laurie Wilson some credit. She's the one, I think she's the one who kind of made that discovery within the crafting world of using press and seal on your projects. And it really is brilliant, saves so much time. So I'm taking some press and seal and I'm putting it adhesive side up on my work surface here, and I can see the grid through the press and seal. And I'm using the grid as a guide to put all of these pieces down onto the press and seal plastic. As I pick up each square, I'm picking it up and turning it over so that the front, the side that I want, is pressed down to the surface. And I'm also making sure that I have like a mirrored reflection. Now, if this gets a little bit too confusing, you could, of course, use two different pieces of press and seal and use the first one to pick up all those pieces and turn them over, just like I did with that other, when I needed to clear my work surface. You could pick them up that way and then just pick them up and transfer them to get them in the perfect arrangement. You could do it both ways. I then took some foam tape and I cut it into little squares. If you have square dimensional adhesive already, this is the perfect time to use it, but I didn't have as many as I needed for all these squares, so I just cut some with some foam tape and adhered all the squares to the back of my papers. I then took off all that release paper on the back, and now it's ready to be adhered to my card front. So I have a 5x7 card base here. It's made out of some Neenah Solar White. And I picked up this entire grouping of square die cuts and very carefully kind of hovered it over the front of my card, tried to get it positioned just perfectly. And the thing that's great about this is that it keeps the arrangement of all the die cuts, but you can see through the press and seal to see the dimension and the position of where the die cuts are on the card. After they're in the right spot, you can press down really, really well. Walk your fingers over all of those squares. Press that foam tape down onto the surface. You want to make sure that it's pressed really well so that when you peel away the press and seal, it doesn't pick up any of the die cuts. So then I just peeled back that Glad press and seal, and I'm left with perfectly spaced die cuts. There are a couple little spots that aren't perfectly spaced, but super close and so fast. That was a really great way to adhere those. I did a similar thing with the rectangle pieces. I just switched up a few of the sizes for the widths, so that's why they're all in a row. And then I adhered that to, this time, a craft colored 5x7 card base. This is some Neenah Desert Storm environmental cardstock. So I pressed that down and then peeled back the Glad press and seal, and I'm left with this really cool column of die cuts. I did the same exact thing but with the triangles, and I spaced them out using my grid mat as a guide right on top of the press and seal. Put the foam tape down, removed the release paper, and then I was able to pick up this entire arrangement and transfer it to an A2 sized card. So this is some more of that Neenah Solar White cardstock, and this time it's a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card. So I press that down really well, and then I can peel back that Glad press and seal. I really love this method of adhering a bunch of die cuts to the front of these cards. I think otherwise the perfectionist in me would have been really bothered because I wouldn't have been able to get everything on there just perfectly. So now I have a bunch of these cards that all they need are greetings. So I kind of put them all out on my work surface to kind of take a glance at them. And I decided that I would do some really simple greetings using I think it's called, let's see, Just Because Word Mix 2 from Simon Says Stamp. And I'm going to be stamping both of those really large groups of greetings. The first one is an Versify and Claire Acorn ink. It's a nice brown that will match more of those wood tones. And then I also stamped the same stamps but in black. And I used VersaFine Onyx Black for those. And it's going to give me a nice stark contrast for all of the watercolor or the grungy papers that I use, the colorful ones. So I did die cut some of these, and other ones I just used my scissors to cut out. But for the one that I cut out with my scissors, I wanted to hide the white edge of my greeting. So I just pounced that onto that brown ink pad, and it kind of made all those edges brown, and it made it perfect. So then I used some foam adhesive to adhere all of the greetings to my cards, and I'm left with 6 cards. In total, this took me about 2 hours to do all of the die cutting, the adhering, and also the greetings, and I had a really fun time. It was a good card making session. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments, and all the supplies are listed down below. Break out that pattern paper. I think you can have a lot of fun. Thanks for watching today, and I'll catch you guys in another video very soon.